Hey, what's going on, good people? This is Gardner Douglas, and yes, I'm your Oyster Ninja. This is the Oyster Ninja podcast, and today we got a great show lined up for you. We're going to talk to the Chesapeake Bay Mermaid, or Chessy, as she likes to be called, and she's doing great things for the Bay. She's going to tell you all about it, and she's going to tell you a lot of things that you can even do to help out the Chesapeake Bay. And for you guys, who, a lot of people have contacted me, hey, what can I do to help out? Well, this is, of course, local to the Chesapeake Bay. So if you're in the area, or even if you want to travel and help, there's something going on every weekend that I found out, through the last couple podcasts, whether it's with some of the Riverkeeper Foundations or Chesapeake Bay Mermaid. There's so many groups out there that's trying to do great things for the Bay, and I guess you just gotta love it, But the Chesapeake Bay Mermaid, I know some of you are even wondering, where does she come from? You're gonna find it out. Don't worry about it. You're gonna find it out. Some of you might be saying, mermaids really exist? Yes, they do, because we're gonna talk to her today. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoy this episode. Also want to put out, I got some Oyster Ninja shucking knives. So if you're interested and you would like one, hey, shoot me an email, oysterninjapc@gmail. Probably should have said that at the end, but hey, enjoy the show. Let me know what you think.
Hi, I'm the Chesapeake Mermaid. How are you today?
She is the Chesapeake Bay Mermaid. So, what do I call you? Chesapeake Bay Mermaid or Miss Mermaid? Or
you can call me Chesapeake, Chessy, some people call me.
Chessy, I like that. It's very catchy.
Yeah, my name is actually pronounced underwater, so it's not something that humans can do too easily. So, right. Chesapeake Mermaid is what the people have named me, and so it's, I like it. Sounds good. It's friendly. It works.
No doubt. It's very you.
Thank you.
Because you have that. I like Chess. Chessy's nice.
Yeah.
So, can you tell me a little bit about yourself? I know you're the Chesapeake Bay Mermaid, but what do you do?
What do I do?
Yeah.
Well, I'm reluctant to call myself an environmentalist. I'm really just, I'm a volunteer. I'm helpful. I'm just like everybody else. I mean, I know I've got a tail, and some people are like, "Oh, you're so magical," and everything like that. But really, I don't see that in myself. I see myself as just being a member of the public. I love the Chesapeake region. This is my home. It's a beautiful place. You can't take a bad picture of it, And I've seen it through a lot of changes. I'm almost 400 years old now, and it's been good times here in the Bay, but we've got a lot of work to do. So when I met my friend Larvey, him and I came up and we decided we wanted to reach out to the people to communicate about some of the stuff that we've seen and some of the changes that have happened over time, and see if we can't build some bridges and solve some problems. I don't have any solutions, but I do have experiences to share, and I've been really interested in reaching out, meeting new people. So I attend events and I meet the public and I tell them my story. Families and children are usually more prone to approaching a mermaid, so right. That tends to be my bigger audience. But I've done dinner parties and things like that too, and everybody I've met has just been really, really wonderful in talking about the Bay, and I focus on oysters really. Because I see that as the foundation for making the biggest changes in our habitats and our wildlife. So
wow,
there you go.
That's deep. that's one of the best intros I think I've heard.
Thank you. Wow. And that just came right off the tail.
Yeah,
there it is.
There you go.
You have a nice laugh. I like hearing people laugh. It's fun. I think people don't laugh enough.
No doubt. Well, that's how, real life tries and, takes you joy, but I'm glad you're spreading the joy.
Thank you.
Glad.
Thank you.
So you said you were 400 years old.
Yeah.
What are some of the biggest changes you've seen in the Chesapeake Bay?
Well, it's gotten a lot more crowded. It used to be just, a scattering of people, but a whole lot of wildlife, and now we've got a lot more built up around here. We've gone from, little tiny colonial towns to great big cities. A lot more things have gone on, and just in my lifetime, I've seen a difference in the clarity of the water, and the different types of fish. We've gotten some new species here that we hadn't seen before, and certainly the bottom of the Chesapeake Bay, which a lot of the people don't see, has changed a lot. We've done a lot to change the bottom of the Chesapeake Bay. It's a whole different landscape than what there had been before. So I know there's a lot of people right now that are studying even the archaeology of the bay to find out historically where some of those old oyster reefs used to be. But now that people are so interested in oysters, it gives me a really great opportunity to talk to them about why it's not so easy to build an oyster reef, but why it's so important that we should learn about it and discover all of the things that we need to be able to improve the water quality, to be able to improve those habitats, and bring back some of those animals that have disappeared, some of those critters and trees and fish and things like that we've lost, and figure out a new balance. It's not going to be the same as it used to be. It'll never be the same. So I'm not interested in turning back time, but I am interested in finding a new balance.
Okay. All right.
So there's a lot of people out there that talk about restoration. What is that? What point do we go back to restore it to? And, I'm really careful when I use those words, because I don't have those answers. But I do know that there's an imbalance. There's a lot of time and involvement and money spent trying to maintain certain things that are difficult, that we're struggling with things like excess sediment, excess nitrogen and phosphorus in the water, and things like that. And so, working towards common goals, I think, is going to be the new future. It's really more about people than it is about the environment. And the closer we become, the better the environment is going to be.
Wow. So we've had our first African American president. We've had our first entertainer president. What about the first mermaid president?
Mermaid president.
I'm just saying, I'd vote for you.
Well, I've heard the president has quite an entourage, and as a mermaid on land, I have to have quite an entourage too. I can't get around on my own. You know how they always say, the president doesn't have anything in his pocket.
Right.
They've asked before, and they reach in and they're like, it's just, fuzz balls and dust and things like that. I think the mermaid wouldn't have anything in her pockets either. It's pretty difficult getting around on land, but, I used to have a nice little grotto made out of lots of shell, but I've actually donated a lot of my shell to shell recycling. If you notice that there's a lot of art out there, there's even some other mermaids around, but you see a lot of times they're wearing shells, and, shell necklaces, shell tops, and things like that. And, I've traded all of that in. I've given everything that I have to the bay, and, I let everybody know that, you won't see me wearing shells. Because, we really have a shell shortage.
Right.
And so in working towards that, I want to be a good example. So am I ready for president? I don't know. But, certainly if people stood behind me, I really feel like together we could do anything.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So you spoke a little bit about the new species to the bay, like the fish. What type what are they causing harm to the bay? Like the new fish species that you talked about?
There's some invasive species. There's some invasive shellfish.
Okay.
Zebra mussels, have been a problem. You may have heard about them. They're really trying to check and make sure that boats and ballasts and things that are traveling throughout the areas aren't bringing in harmful species. A lot of the invasive species that we currently have come from ship ballast. A lot of people don't know that. Some of them have actually been introduced by science, in trying to restore some of our shellfish reefs that we have when they realized we had a problem. Some of the scientists brought in and started trying to crossbreed some Pacific oysters, my understanding. And that's part of how we ended up with MSX and Dermo, which ended up being a lot more trouble than
right.
The restoration that we were trying to achieve. So yeah, when we bring in these new species, when we bring in different things, just with what we're doing with our day-to-day lives, we're really making changes in places that we don't always foresee, we don't even always understand. And that's a big reason why I try to tell people I don't know everything. I don't have all the answers.
Right.
But this is a journey. And I want people to come along and join me for that journey so we can learn together, so we can grow together. We're all going to make our mistakes.
Right.
And, one of the things that I find so interesting, you spend time on the internet, right?
A little bit.
Yeah, okay. I've got my website and I've got my Facebook. I do a lot of fun stuff with my audience. But, there's posts that go up sometimes from, the Big Fish, Chesapeake Bay Foundation, or a Chesapeake Bay program. And every once in a while, you'll see a troll. You'll see somebody be like, oh, why didn't you do that before? Or, hey, why didn't you spend money on something else? But you know what I've done? I've reached out to those people. And I've said, hey, I'm the Chesapeake Mermaid. And I'm really curious why you said that. Why do you have these feelings? And it's opened up a whole other world to me. I have met people in amazing places that have done amazing things. And you know what? Some of these people are just looking to be heard, to be understood. They don't feel like they have a place, But what I notice is that we all have in common, guess what it is?
What's that?
We all want to help the bay. And so, you know what? I really want to emphasize that.
Right.
Whether or not we are for or against eating fish or shellfish, whether or not, we're scientists or watermen or whatever it is that we've come from. If we've moved from another area and we find this home, or whether we've lived here our whole lives, we need to put all those differences aside.
Right.
And we need to start talking about what we have in common. And it's going to be so much better, I think, once we all start to make that progress and understand one another.
Whew. Where do I vote at? Wow. So what's a day in the life as a Chesapeake Bay Mermaid?
Day in the life. Wow.
What's an average day or a fun day?
Oh, I don't think I have an average day.
Do you have any hard days?
What was that?
Do you have any hard days?
Do I have hard days? Oh, absolutely. I've done a lot of restoration work around the bay with a lot of really helpful citizens, a lot of people out there doing things, different organizations, different groups. I've built oyster castles. That's pretty hard work right there. You get a line of people and, you've got a soft, mushy bottom and you're all stacking, 30, 40-pound bricks on top of each other.
Right.
I've been out on boats when we've been we've got spat on reef balls that we've built, and we're putting them in, and there's a lot of hydraulics and stuff like that, but everybody is there and trying to guide things and coordinate stuff and running around on the boats. We've done a lot of different things. Definitely a day in the life of a mermaid is not anything that I would consider typical. But, in addition to working in the water, I also work on land. I work with habitats and stuff with the different park services. So I've done, grass planting on the dunes to try to help erosion. I've also done tree planting, all of those things to help get some of the stormwater runoff from the parking lots, the shopping centers, the communities, things like that. Adding all of that organic stuff back in on the coast helps the water, right? Because it's all part of the same thing. So I've got all kinds of models and things like that I show the kids as well.
Wow. It really is just a big circle.
It is.
A revolving circle. So have you found any treasures?
Have I found treasures?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, what age group is your audience? I've found some naughty things in the Chesapeake Bay. I'm not sure what some of these people are doing out there.
We'll share.
I'm not sure I should talk about some of those. I found a tiny little tin container from the 1930s that seafaring gentlemen used to carry little sheepskin devices, we'll say. That was, I guess there were a lot of sailors back in the day doing some exciting things
extra
out
work
there in the water. That's about as well censored as I can make that story. You grown-ups will understand. That's probably the funniest thing that I found in the bay. But, I found fossils.
Oh, wow.
I found a vertebrae, a backbone from a dolphin that is 23 million years old, approximately.
Of course.
23 years old. And I couldn't date that myself. I actually brought it to the scientists at the Calvert Marine Museum and had them check it out.
Was that like under silt, or was it like out and about, or on the shore?
It was over by, if you go over by Calvert Cliffs, that's one of the best places in the Chesapeake Bay to look for fossils. And, during areas like now, the storm just passed with all the wind.
Right.
And we have this really, really low tide. I mean, I'm sure you've seen it. Like, all the water just practically drained away.
Mm-hmm.
And you can go far further out than you had ever been before. And you can find all of these things that get turned up in the rocks and in the silt and all over on the coastline. Shark's teeth.
Oh, yeah.
You like shark's teeth?
Of course.
Yeah, everybody's always looking for that megalodon tooth,
Right.
that great big thing.
Yeah.
I haven't found one yet.
What's the best time to go down to the cliffs?
What's the best time?
The best time to go down.
If you go down early on Saturday mornings, a lot of times they have scientists out there that do talks that can help show you around, that can help identify what you find. And I always encourage people to come for some of those fossil hunts. I think it's a really exciting introduction to the Calvert Cliffs area.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
My son is going to go crazy. So, did you take like the whole backbone or spine? How do you describe it?
It was a vertebrae.
Oh,
it's
just a vertebrae.
It's a one piece
Okay.
of what would have been its spine.
Right. Okay, I got you now.
Yeah, and the only thing we know is that it was an adult because the discs on either side of the spine have fully grown in to the bone, and you can see the markings from it. But other than that, we really can't tell all that much.
That is so interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. That is a treasure.
That is a treasure. It's a better treasure than the first treasure. The first one's just pretty funny, isn't it?
Right. That's kind of, wow. So how can the average person help? I know you say you're part of all these organizations. Like, how can we find out about these type of things and, sign up?
Oh, my goodness. I'm so glad you asked.
Great.
I'm so excited to share this. Well, I just set up my new website, and it has a huge events calendar. It also has a resource page of a lot of the other organizations that I partner with. And really the challenging thing is that all of them sort their events in different ways. So I've kind of aggregated all of that data into one big calendar. And we haven't quite worked out all our bugs yet. Like I said, we just set it up. But it's going to be a great resource for everybody. But there's stuff out there, from the Nature Conservancy. They can, whether they help plant trees or they build reefs or, even help clean up parks. We do cleanups as well, beach and community cleanups. There's still a lot of illegal dumping. You'd be surprised how many times you go behind a shopping center and you find like a sectional, like a whole couch or bird baths or an old refrigerator. I don't know how these things end up down there on their own. You'd think they just sprout legs. If I knew how to just sprout legs, I'd be doing much better things with my time than just finding my way to a creek. But apparently this is what the refrigerators do on land.
Right.
But yes, check out my website, ChesapeakeMermaid.com. And I'm all over social media. On Twitter, I'm Chessy Mermaid.
Chessy.
And on Instagram, I'm Chesapeake Mermaid. On Facebook, I'm Chesapeake Mermaid. I do my best to share events as soon as I hear about them. But it's not all hard work. We do play as well. And I do share a lot of dinners and festivals that support oyster restoration, that support wildlife and habitat. So even if you're a hard worker during the day, maybe you've already given as much as you can come out and have some, have some oysters and have a nice drink and party it up with all of us merfolk.
So as a Chesapeake Mermaid, what's your diet like?
What's my diet like?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a great question. I have kids come up, ask me all the time that are kind of curious and also kind of concerned at the same time. Do you eat fish? Right. And the truth is, yes, personally, I do eat fish, and I do eat shellfish. I love oysters. I love crabs. I mean, I grew up around here, so it's as much part of my background as it is anything else. But I think the question is, what do I advocate? And that seems to be a really curious thing. And it's a good question to ask. And you know what? I really don't have an answer. And even though I do oyster recycling and I do encourage everybody to put everything back in the bay, the best thing that I can tell children is that what you choose to eat is a very important decision. It's very personal. It's very complicated. A lot of times it has to do with health and diet. It's emotional. Sometimes it's even religious, And that's not something that I really want to. It's a little far off from my normal campaign. So, right. I want people to care about the bay and whatever it is they choose to eat. I've got friends that are vegetarians and vegans. I've been a vegetarian at different points in my life, and so it changes as well. And I'm not going to advocate a particular diet or lifestyle as far as what people are going to eat, but I do encourage them to seek out smart choices, to try a variety of food, to try to support local industries, local markets, because that's how we're going to get the most benefit out of our own local Chesapeake Bay.
So you said you like oysters.
I do like oysters.
We're going to test you out. Okay. What's your favorite oyster?
What's my favorite oyster?
Yeah.
Oh, I would love to be one of those connoisseurs that has one of those delectable palates that can tell that, it's a little grittier from one section of the bay or a little saltier from another area. And, I've been to many of the fine restaurants and I've had wonderful, wonderful people share with me some absolutely delicious oysters. But you know how there's some people out there that like their steak well done and it makes everybody cringe. I love hot sauce.
Oh.
I love hot sauce and wasabi on my oysters.
Wow.
And I know there's a lot of fancy oyster connoisseurs out there that are like, oh, you're ruining the taste. You're doing that steak well done. That's so naughty. But, this mermaid can only talk about her personal palate.
No.
She loves the hot sauce.
Okay. Do you have a favorite hot sauce?
Do I have a favorite hot sauce?
Yeah.
Well, I love Be More Saucy. Have you heard of Be More Saucy?
Yeah.
Be More Saucy is absolutely wonderful, and they're also doing a lot of wonderful things for the Chesapeake Bay. They started, if you buy some of their hot sauces, they give money back to the Chesapeake Bay Savers, who are
great.
here in Annapolis, and they're a group of volunteers. I've met some of those folks doing oyster cage cleaning and things like that. I've got friends all over the place. If you can't tell already.
You get around.
I do get around. This tail gets around. Oh, wait, maybe not like that. Maybe I shouldn't have said it that way.
Love it. Okay.
Next question. These are really good, by the way. This is a fun interview.
That's great.
And you know what? It's great that we laugh.
No doubt. We got to, right? Got to. So how in the bigger picture, how do oysters affect our habitat?
How do they affect their habitat? Oh, my goodness. Well, what don't they do, really? If anybody wants to take a look at my book, The Last Bivalvian, I tell the history of the Chesapeake Bay and the importance of oysters. So I'm trying to convey some of this to the kids. But, oysters, they filter the water. So they're going to take in a lot of that excess algae. A little bit of algae is okay, but we've got so many chemicals floating around out there, it's turned into kind of this big stew. We've got way too much algae. So, building back the oyster population is going to help with some of that, to help clean some of that up. It's also helping to remember I said about the foundation of the Chesapeake Bay, the
right.
bottom of the Chesapeake Bay, how much we've changed that. It's going to help that. The oyster reefs, their heart is rocks. And they build all these little nooks and crannies. They make homes for the animals. Everything is all integrated in there, and they just have this absolute magical ability of just bringing back the balance, because they have all of that connectivity to all of the different wildlife, because it's a great breaker for the water coming in, the waves, any storms and things like that. It prevents erosion. It also protects our bay grasses. You've heard a lot too about the bay grass restoration. That's another thing that's been going on. Oh my goodness, my phone's ringing. Look at that. I'm sorry.
Hope that's waterproof.
There we go.
So could you tell me a little bit more about the bay grass?
Oh, yes, the bay grasses. It's a wonderful thing. I've actually done some of the bay grass programs with the Chesapeake Bay Foundation, mostly down in the Virginia side of things with the Brock Environmental Center. But it's a great way to get the grasses back into the bay. Sometimes it's hard to get them to really thrive on their own, but what they're doing is they take the seeds from them each season, they distribute them amongst a bunch of volunteers. We grow them in tanks at home with lights and bubbles and all kinds of fun things like that. And we go back out to, say, the James River, and we plant all of these seagrasses again. But you know what? It's a great habitat. That's where a lot of the fish come and they lay their eggs. They talk about the Chesapeake Bay being a natural nursery. And it's so true, because it's so broad. It's so shallow. The Chesapeake Bay really is, you can just think of it as, the river valley from the old Susquehanna River. And that's really what it was. So, all of these animals, these fish and things, rays and lots of other things like that, they come back in on a migratory cycle, and they come in to the grass beds, they come up into the rivers, and that's where they lay their eggs. That's where all the babies are born. Our crabs, really, our blue crabs have been really struggling to look for some habitat, and they're going to be there in all of the bay grasses as well. So, having the oyster reefs in areas where it's protecting all of that soft bottom that the bay grasses grow in really is just, it's all part of this wonderful cycle that we have going on. So yeah, if people are interested in the bay grass program, I do post volunteer opportunities for those as well. We're kind of getting into the season where they're going to be planting the grasses, so people will have to wait until next fall or winter if they want to grow some bay grasses of their own at home. But it's a great thing.
That sounds like a hard process, growing and plant. Well, maybe not the growing, but definitely planting, because the it's soft, where you planting it, right? So what's the survival rate, or you know what I mean?
What's the I don't know the exact numbers, but it is pretty tricky. We go out there and we're very careful where we step. We don't want to harm any of the grasses that are already there. We try to pick areas that are pretty sparse, where we want the bay grasses to spread to. And we float bins out that have the baskets with the bay grasses and stuff that we've grown, so we're not damaging the bottom with a lot of heavy equipment or anything like that. And certainly having volunteer, soft hands and things like that is going to be better than any machine that they bring out there to do that kind of thing.
Right.
So
perfect. I've learned something else. I love it. I love learning.
There you go. Sit right here on Oyster Ninja podcast. We're exploring the other things associated with oysters.
Exactly.
We're getting into bay grasses and blue crabs, all these other Chesapeake Bay
That's
things.
what it's all about,
Yeah.
Ninja style. So let's talk about your book.
Yeah, my book.
Because I love the book.
You did.
I'm going to read it to my son.
Oh, I've got it. Where is it? Right here. Here it is. The Last Bivalvian.
The Last Bivalvian.
Yeah, you've got it right there in your hand.
The story by the Chesapeake Mermaid.
Yeah.
This is great. And
so, like I said, it's about the history of the Chesapeake Bay and the importance of oysters. But it's not just a story. One of the things that I always liked about storybooks when I was a little fry was having maps So there's a couple maps in there. There's a magical map of the past of what the Chesapeake Bay used to look like a long, long time ago, back when I was a little fry. And then there's a map of today with landmarks, oyster landmarks, where people can go and they can see some of the restoration work that's being done. They can contribute in different volunteer ways. And then in the back of the book, we have some real facts.
Real life.
What was that?
Real life facts.
Yeah. There's also some information about what you can do to help larvae and the oysters. And it's a variety of things, but there are different things that are on a kid's level, like participating with different cleanup groups at maybe a beach or a park. But there's also things in their day-to-day life, like maybe using less plastic, skipping a plastic spoon if they don't need one, or skipping a straw. You know, these are all little things that we can do. And some people say we're past doing the little things, we need to be doing bigger things. I will never say that the little things don't matter. You know, it's all about the individual. It's all about all of us making the changes and doing the best that we can. And that is what I promote. I really want people to get a good feel for being connected to their home. You know, there weren't enough resources. You know, I used to work in a touch tank. I used to teach kids about all the different fish that they might see down at the seashore. I've also worked in wildlife rescue, and I've seen the different animals coming in from the front lines, the different ways that they run into contact with humans and things like that. And, you know, it's always what I want to stress to people is just having that connectivity. You know, getting resources to kids where they can learn more about the environment, and then they can go out on their own and they can explore. Having ways that they can study the different kinds of fish. You know, if these resources aren't available because, you know, everybody's doing national grants and national programs and things like that, I really think it's something that we need to focus on, and getting people back into more of the local resources. And then, you know, they grow up feeling more connected to their environment. They're more likely to go out and volunteer on a Saturday and really get involved.
Yeah, I feel the same way. If you start young, you know, it'll stick with you.
Yeah.
You know, as you get older.
And kids grow up so fast. I mean, you know, ChesapeakeMermaid.com, you know, is about 8 years old now. And I've been out there engaging people and talking to them at events for about 3 years. And that means that the kids that were 5 years old when I first started, you know, they're 8 now.
Right.
You know, there's a big difference between what a 5-year-old and an 8-year-old can talk about and can understand. But I can tell that they've already been impacted. You know, they're excited to talk about it. They want to know more. You know, and the more resources we can give them, the better they're going to grow.
That's awesome. So, if I have this correct, so larvae?
Yes.
He's the last of his kind.
Yes, he's the last magical bivalvian. He's right over here. Why don't you come on out, larvae?
Come on out, larvae.
He is.
Nice to meet you.
Yes. And the reason we talk about the bivalvians in our book is not just because the bivalvians are important and magical just as much as mermaids are. They're really fun to talk about, right?
Yeah.
But the bivalvian story could be the story of the oysters, because the bivalvians are related to the oysters. But you know what? By talking about the bivalvians, we bypass all the political stuff that we have to deal with the oysters. So the kids can relate to the bivalvians. You know, they're these magical creatures. And certainly his name is Larvae because guess what? He looks like an oyster larvae.
He does.
So he's got all of these funny little shaggy hairs on his face.
No doubt.
And these are his cilia, which is kind of a silly word, but it's fun to say.
Right.
And so he can still move. He can move around as long as he has enough magic.
Right.
But the bivalvians, their magic was depleted, and as there became less and less of them, they fell further and further apart.
Right.
And so they eventually all disappeared. Now, there may be more bivalvians somewhere in the world I don't know about.
Right.
I would really love to find them too. And you know, maybe if we build better habitats for the oysters, maybe we'll get some bivalvians that come back too. And you know what? The mermaids used to be around, and it got difficult for them as well to live here, and many of them moved on. I stayed because, well, I was just too curious for my own good, and I went off to take care of some animals and got lost. Yeah. But, you know, maybe if we make the bay a little better, we'll see some more mermaids here as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. So have you met any interesting people or scientists or, you know, anybody like that?
Yeah. You know, well, I've met tons of interesting people in all kinds of backgrounds and walks of life. But, you know, some of the scientists that I've met from the Bay have such interesting stories, you know. Quite a few of them came here in the 60s. For work, you know, they studied the Chesapeake Bay. They knew a lot about it, and they were really excited. They, you know, were part of these programs. They really thought they were going to turn it around, and they worked hard, and they've tried, and they failed, and, you know, there's been so many changes over the years, and I've talked to some of them, and their story is a little bit sad, because they say, you know, I came here with such optimism, and I feel like over my lifetime, all that I've succeeded in doing is documenting the decline. And, you know, that really breaks my heart. But, you know, they still have hope that there's going to be a change out there. And that's part of my mission, right, is in trying to find our next generation of hopefuls, you know, as these scientists are getting older and are unable to do the things that they used to be able to do. You know, I don't want them to feel like their knowledge is wasted. I want that to be passed down. I want us to be able to learn from all of their experiences and what it is that they've done. And I don't feel that it's a lost cause, you know, but I do think it's something that we need to get together on. And you know, you never know what background or what walk of life the solution is going to come from. It might be a waterman, it might be a scientist, it might be you know, a kid in school right now playing with crayons. He's going to grow up and he is going to have that answer. So, you know, I don't like to leave anybody out. You know, because like I said in the beginning, we're all in this together, right? We're all looking for a better bay.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Is there anything you would like to add?
Anything else I'd like to add?
Did I miss anything?
Well, you know, I just love meeting you today. You know, I don't know how we haven't met before. I've been to so many oyster events.
I know.
I feel like we've been 2 degrees.
It's probably we've been walked right past each other.
Exactly.
Or I walked and you kind of. But yeah, it's probably so. I'm sure of it. But yeah, we know now. So I'm gonna have my eyes out now. I'm gonna have my silly out there, you know, feeling. Yeah. So thank you for coming out today, and
thank you. And check out ChesapeakeMermaid.com.
Chesapeake Bay.
Follow me on Facebook. That's my primary means of communication. Chesapeake Mermaid on Facebook. I'm also Chessy Mermaid on Twitter, and Chesapeake Mermaid on Instagram.
And the book is where? Where can we get the book?
Oh, the book is on the website, and it's also on Amazon. So you go to ChesapeakeMermaid.com/shop. You could remember that, can't you?
Right.
That's where you can get your copies of the book. They're on hardback and on paperback. And if you come out to any of my events, you can meet me, and you can get a book, and I'll autograph it for you, too.
Fancy.
So, see, there's a bonus.
Well, thank you very much.
And maybe you could bring me some hot sauce.
Yeah, be more saucy. Yeah, of course. But, yeah, no doubt. We'll talk. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, good people. So did I tell you, or did I tell you? Another great episode, and you finally get to meet the Chesapeake Bay Mermaid if you haven't already. So that's it for me. I don't think there's any really big oyster events going on or anything this week or next week. If you're in DC, of course, like I said, go follow us on our DC Oyster Meetup group. I'll put the link in the comments. And, yeah, just stay tuned. The next episode is going to be another good one. We're talking about oyster nutrition. And I'm thinking about, usually the episode's been bi-weekly. I'm thinking about going back to back for the next couple weeks, because I got my birthday coming up at the end of the month, and I don't want to put any pressures on me, you know what I mean? but I still want to get you guys some great content. So, as always, if you want to send me an email, the email is oysterninjapc@gmail.com. If you want to follow us on Facebook, it's Oyster Ninja, the Oyster Ninja Podcast. Instagram is oysterninjapc. Like and follow us. There's always something going out on the Facebook post. The Facebook page, I'm always putting, oyster news up so you can stay hip, with the oyster game. This weekend was Chesapeake's Oyster Festival, I believe. I wish I could have made it down there, but, gotta work. And they don't ever want to hire me to shuck. I don't know, I'm from the Eastern Shore. I felt like I'm about to go on a rant, so I'm just going to leave that one alone. Anyway, thank you guys for listening. Stay tuned for the next one.